Good day. Right, just to let you know, a bit of a disclaimer. These videos won't be super professional. There won't be links, there won't be links here, there, anywhere. Just simple. Anyway, because I'm too old and it takes too much time and I'd rather be doing wood turning or something like that. So, yeah. So hands up, who wants the vacuum chuck? So I've been looking at this for the last few weeks and it's driving me absolutely, completely insane. Bless them, all of them. The stuff that's on the YouTube is really, really limited and not very helpful. It's the politest way I can put it. There's obviously the hold fast system, which I think at £300 or getting on for £300 is expensive. Let's put it that way. Yes, you get all the kit and you get the chuck. I don't think you get the pump though, because it works off a vacuum and it's got this horrible little box that you switch. I don't even know how it works, but I looked at it and thought, yeah, some old granny made that in her cottage. Maybe that's not a very prudent thing to say on YouTube, but anyway, fuck them, excuse my language. So I then looked at the one-way system, and again, it seems massively complicated trying to get the vacuum from one end of the from the outboard side to the inboard side, and you have to cut the equipment to a bespoke length. Now I've got two lathes. I've got this Nova and I've got an Axminster, and this one is 300mm from outboard to inboard, and that one is 210mm from outboard to inboard. So if I buy the hold fast or the one-way system, well, I'm shit out of luck, because if I want to swap them over, I can't. So what do I do then? I buy two systems or two lengths of vacuum pipe that runs from outboard to inboard. Yeah, not going to do that. Then of course, as all us UK wood turners, woodworkers, etc. experience, is a lot of this stuff comes from the States or Canada. It's really difficult to get over here. Sometimes you can find things on eBay, but there's a guy in the States thinks, oh, I'm going to make loads of money with this and I'm going to put this on eBay and charge loads of money and postage. So yeah, that's not really an option. So balls to it, I thought. So what's the next option? Yeah, that's right. I'm clever, aren't I? I'm old, clever, whatever. Maybe not. Oh, by the way, don't worry about subscribing. Don't worry about liking. Yeah, it irritates me, all of that sort of stuff, when you hear like, subscribe, give it to me. Yeah. Anyway, so do what you like in the nicest possible way. Anyway, so I digress. So yes, back vacuum chucking. What a pain in the arse. I bought a vacuum chamber, which I do a lot of resining. Never really used vacuum chamber. I've always found that the resin's pretty good at degassing itself, apart from in the winter, obviously. So I thought, well, let's give it a go. So I bought it, but it's still pretty cold here in the UK. And I made a mould and I tried to degas the silicone rubber, and it sort of worked to one degree or another, and likewise with a very fast set epoxy. I promised myself I wouldn't waffle, but here I go. So anyway, so putting all that to one side, I've got a vacuum pump, and it's obviously not the most expensive, and I thought, yeah, I can do this, because the Nova Galaxy has got a solid headstock pass-through, I can't remember. In fact, I don't even know the right term. And I believe, over here, I believe her Axminster does as well. So, as I say, that's 210, this is 300. So, you know, buy 2 systems or get out of town. Anyway, so I thought this is what I need. So I very carefully made or turned a piece of wood. So this end here, with a bit of a row seal, fits in. There's a headstock on the outboard side. It's a nice fit. I was very careful. I'm normally not that patient. Yeah, bollocks to it. Just anyway. And then there's 4, I think they're M6. Yeah, they are M6. 4 M6 threaded holes in the headstock outboard side. So we've got 4 holes. Put it in the headstock outboard side. You screw the screws down, and it seals all that nice and tightly. I did think about making a silicone insert instead of the wood, but yeah, that's a job for another day. So this bit out the end here, I decided we're going to put some bearings in. Yeah, it's not pretty, but I've got 2 bearings in there. So first effort, I only had 1 bearing. No, I had 2 bearings. Sorry, I had 2 bearings in here, and I sealed as much of it as I could with 1mm, 2mm foam with this crappy little plastic or acrylic washer, and screwed it down. So as I say, I just wanted to see if it will work with my pump. So connects it all up, turns the vacuum on, and everything's good apart from the fact it's sucking air back through the bearings. So after losing the will to live on the internet, going round and round and round and round, and keep looking at one way and hold fast, and robust tools, I think, is another one. They're all horrible. I don't know. I just really don't like them. I am by trade an electronics engineer who was in engineering a long time ago, so I like things to look nice, and I'm like that with all my tools. I like nice tools, hence the Nova Galaxy. Anyway, yeah, the air was bleeding back through the bearings, and yeah, I just thought, oh, yeah. Anyway, so I sort of came away and I thought, right, let's have a look at what's going on again on the internet. So there's another day of my life I'm not going to get back. Anyway, so I go on the internet and I'm looking around. There's a chap who sells, I won't mention any names, very nice guy, does some very nice tools, and he sells vacuum chucks, but just chucks. So, right, I'm going to get this working and I'm going to use his chucks. So I placed an order, and then when I placed the order, I asked him, what do you do for a vacuum, etc. So he proffered the suggestion that he said, I have a kit. He has developed a kit that he hasn't put on his website yet. So I thought, right, okay, he sent me some details, I looked at it, and again, it's pretty much the holdfast system without that silly little box they have with spit on it. So, where was I? Anyway, oh God. Yeah, so he sent that through, and then he said, what you need to do is tell me the distance between headstock, outboard and inboard. So all of a sudden, I'm all the way back to the original problem. Do I have to buy 2 systems for 2 lathes because they're different mix? So yeah, I just had enough by then, sort of thing. And I thought, okay, at a push, I'll go with that route. Anyway, so after a little, I keep saying anyway a lot, I will try and stop that. It's annoying me, so it must be really annoying you. Anyway, there you go. Boom, boom. So looking at the kit he was offering, it was £80 for just the through-pass vacuum pipe. And then I wanted to buy a vacuum gauge because I didn't want to use the one off my vacuum chamber. So that was another £60, roughly speaking. And that's without anything else. And I thought, that's £160. And God knows what I've already spent on freaking bearings and all this shite. So it was bugging me. It was really, really bugging me. So I went, and I had been looking, and I really like them. I'm hopefully I'm as impressed in the flesh by another make, but we're not going to cover that at the moment. So what I found is all these Herberts who were telling us about vacuum this, vacuum chuck, da, da, da. This little piece here, not the wood, but these bearings, it's, oh yeah, just put this bearing in and just put this in and just put in. There's no detail to it. So it was really irritating. And all right, it's obvious, I think, for any mechanical engineer would understand that you can't get air-sealed bearings, which was a bit of a surprise. I suppose it shouldn't have been really, but it was. So I then goes off and down another rabbit hole. How do we stop the air leaking back through the bearings? So eventually I got to the stage where, let me just undo this. Oh no, it's going the wrong way, as am I. Bear with me. So I was on the internet and I thought, there must be something that can do this. How the hell do you stop air or water leaking through? I know it's in reverse because a vacuum is pulling in rather than pressure of air pushing out, etc. How do you seal it to stop, you know, like some sort of axle that's got an oil chamber that the axle goes through? The axle has to turn. You can't have the oil in the you know, in the chamber where it's holding the oil. You can't have it leaking out. Anyway, I said it again. I'm really sorry. I'll go home and chastise myself. So this is what I ended up with. This is 7mm wide by 32mm by 13mm seal. Now you look at it and you think, how's that going to work? You know, how's that going to be? Oops, gravity. That's from a chap on YouTube who I like. I don't really want to copy people, but it's fun. This is, and again, I don't know if you can see this. I do hope you can see this because, you know, I'm not going to fuck around with settings and stuff like that. I just want to get you the information because I might save you going on the internet and just. So yeah, sorry, 32mm by 10 thick by 13mm in the middle. The reason why I chose 13mm in the middle was the pipe that I chose, or that fits wrapped around with light. I'm sure the lighting effects are really good here. Wraps around. So this clear pipe, which is just from Amazon, for expediency, and this clear pipe slides straight through into this, which came with its own problems, but bear with me. So I thought, great, so we have bearing seal. They're quite clever, they look really good, but all they do is, you've got the mating side, which is got a cavity in it, and then it just sits over the top of the bearing, like so. So what I did was, I've put some 1mm foam, a bearing, and then I've put a bearing seal which is facing inwards, then I put a bearing seal facing outwards, then I put the next bearing in, and then I put another bearing seal facing inwards. I thought, oh yeah, belt, braces, the lot, that's going to work. So, had this, and by this time I'm not really worried about how this looks, just as long as it functions, because I can make it prettier going forward. However, rather than waste time again. So by the time I've, 3 weeks of work, £100 worth of bearings and seals and rub foam and screws and pipe, it's just, tearing my hair out. But look, I've got no hair anyway. So, where did we get to? Anyway, it works. And as a surprise, you didn't expect that, did you? It works. It does pull a vacuum. I haven't tried it with a vacuum chuck. I just put my hand over the inboard side of the headstock and it sucked the skin of my hand in. Yeah. Please don't leave comments about it's not very safe. It is or it isn't. It didn't hurt me. I've done far worse. Sketchy shit, as they say. So it worked. However, the problem I had then was this is ever so slightly out of balance. Really slightly, not a lot. So when this rotates in the outboard side of the headstock, the pipe, as it slides in, that 13mm pipe slides in past the first seal, pass through the second, the first bearing, through the second seal, through the next bearing. Start again. Goes through the first seal, through the first bearing, through another seal that goes into, and then it goes into the second bearing, and it rotates around that axis. The reason why I did that was so that the pipe had a reasonable amount of support, so it wasn't just poking in by 10mm. So it's poking in by, well, 2 bearings 20mm, 3 7mm 21, so 41mm is poked in there. So it's a little bit, anyway, I've adjusted it and wiggled it, so it's acceptable at the moment, and I thought, okay, we'll sort that out when I do the final product. So there's another half a lifetime gone. So I then decide what I need to do is fit. I've got a lovely little threaded hole at the end of my Galaxy here, and I will show a bit of that later on. I'm not going to move cameras around and things like that. I don't have the patience, and I'm not that clever. So anyway, so I can basically bolt down a piece of wood here, because what I plan to do is I've bought some aluminium pipe, 1/2 inch, 12.7mm, slides in, and then what I'm going to do is taking this will fit in that direction onto this piece of wood that's on the bed. My Galaxy, the piece of wood that's bolted down, I'm going to do a clapper box joint along here with a hole big enough for the aluminium pipe to pass through. So that will be bolted down to the bed. The aluminium pipe will go into the headstock outboard side, pass through this piece of wood and be held firm. And then hopefully, if I can improve the balance a little bit, but yeah, because if you don't have a decent balance of that pipe going through, you end up breaking your vacuum. And as you probably can find on YouTube, if you see someone breaking the vacuum, you have flying bowls. In fact, I was watching a video the other day and the guy ended up with a concussion. Piece of wood hit him straight in the bridge of his nose. And my wife doesn't like me doing things like that. I've been told I must not do things like that. Yeah, I put a Forstner bit through my hand here, which hurt. And I'm normally very safe. But anyway, said it again. Bob, bob, bob. The propensity for this to drop its vacuum and send a bowl flying into your face with a handmade piece of kit is, I reckon, a 1 in 4 chance, maybe. Probably more. I don't know, because all of us we think, yeah, we've got this, yeah, just slap it all together, which is why I did that to my hand. And now I don't do things like that. I try and compose myself before I do anything dangerous. Or stupid, but stupid's a different matter. Stupid is as stupid does. So, this vacuum works, or with the seals. So if you want to build one at your own risk, it does work. Nobody on YouTube that I've seen mentions bearing seals. So these bearing seals, I bought them for £5 each. I've got 3, so that was, well, it was actually £6 each, so yeah, 18 quid. Bob on, gravity. So then the bearings, which, as I say, 32mm, 10mm thick, 13 in the middle. Everywhere else, everywhere I looked on the internet, they wanted £10, £12 for each one of these. Fortunately, I found someone who seemed to be running down their stock and not replenishing, and I paid £2.50 odd a piece. So I bought a few, not hundreds, half a dozen or so. So, fortunately, instead of costing me 60 quid, 70 quid, it cost me about 15 quid with delivery. But we've all got it, and we've got time taken to put the wood, make the wood, the foam, the bearings, the bearing seals, the pipe, the screws, this, that and the other, plus losing the will to live as you go through this process. Eventually, we have a way of getting a vacuum from this end to this end, and it not leaking, basically, but in reverse, because it's a vacuum. So, what I did find, which is why I'm ordering the aluminium pipe, is, come on. Right, ignore that for the moment. Well, I would do it if I could get it off. This, if you leave that just hanging like that, of course, it's in the bearings like that, but it's like that. So it's pulling down on the, predominantly the seals. So basically it slices a groove in this, and also while it's doing that, the there's a leak. It's sucking in out. So which is why I ended up going to think, right, what I need is the aluminium tube, something to support that so that part of it doesn't move. Fortunately, with the Galaxy, you can move the headstock up and down. So it makes life really, really, really easy for that. This then will, it doesn't matter if it's like that, it will just go onto the 1/2 inch. This is 1/2 inch hole ID. So my 13mm clear tube fits into it, and theoretically that should slide on my aluminium pipe. So that gives it a bit more flexibility. So that's where we're at. I'm not sure how much. No, I will look at the comments and things like that. So if you want any information, I can give you part numbers. If I work out how to do it, I'll stick part numbers at the bottom. But yeah, that's what was missing for me on other people's, descriptions of how to get the rotating part, the rotating interface between the pipe and the headstock. And the way to do it is bearings and bearing seals. Nobody mentions bearing seals. I might be wrong. I didn't see anybody doing that, and it took me ages to suddenly figure it out. And as I say, I may be thick, quite possibly. But yeah, that's where we're at. Anyway, there we go again. Must stop it. We'll wrap it up for now. So I will do a part 2 where I'm waiting for this aluminium pipe. Once the aluminium pipe comes, I'll fit it to the headstock. We'll bolt it down to the bed. We'll use my little vacuum pump, which is a core or whatever they're called. It's oil filled. I'm hoping it'll be mad enough. If it's not, expect broken noses and things like that. I think the other thing I forgot to mention is, in with all this cost for bearings and buying £180, yeah, 140 pounds of the actual rotating interface and this pipe from one end of the headstock outboard to the inboard, and the Alzheimer's. No disrespect to anybody with Alzheimer's. So yeah, that fitting, and then chucks and all this, that and the other. I then said to this chap, how much for me to get a dedicated vacuum gauge, because I didn't want to take it off my thing. I might have already said this, so if I did, hey ho. That was, yeah, I did say this, didn't I? Just ignore me. Anyway, as you can see, this is real. Yeah, I haven't got time or inclination to nice and shiny, etc., etc., links or whatever. You never know, I may get there, but I'd rather be doing stuff than doing this. But I thought this was quite useful. This will be quite useful for other people, because it just took me ages. And if somebody wants to look at vacuum chucking, they go on bearings, bearing seals, that's it, really. I wouldn't bet my life on the reliability of it, but it works to a certain degree. Well, sorry, it does work. It's just obviously you need to be careful that you don't lose your vacuum, and that would be if the pipe is pulling to one way or the other out of the seal of the bearing. So I'm going to leave it there. Hope you enjoyed it. Not worried about subscribes and likes and things like that. I just hope it's helpful for someone, because I've been waffling on for what, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. But I've spent so much time and bought so many bits and pieces to try and create this rotating interface, seals, and hopefully now somebody will just watch this and, right, I'm going to do this, I need to buy those, yeah, and you won't be spending loads of money on prototypes like I did. Anyway, au revoir, thank you very much, and it's good night from him.